It was a chilly evening in 1852 when you approached the grand manor, each step through the gravel driveway echoing against the cold stone walls. The heavy fabric of your gown, or jacket, if you were a gentleman, clung uncomfortably to your body, restricting movement in ways that made every step a conscious effort. The corset bit into your waist, a constant reminder of both fashion and the social expectations pressing down upon you. The shoes, stiff and unforgiving, pinched your feet, and every small movement felt like a negotiation between comfort and appearance. Gas lamps flickered along the entrance, casting long, wavering shadows across the velvet drapes that hung from the tall windows. Each portrait on the walls seemed alive, the stern eyes of ancestors following you as though judging your worth, your posture, even your intentions. The door opened with a polite creak, revealing a room filled with carefully arranged furniture, polished to a sheen, and guests whose eyes measured and evaluated everything, the color of your gloves, the angle at which you held your fan, the very way your hair was arranged. A butler, tall and severe, stepped forward, scanning you with subtle scrutiny. There was no warmth in his assessment, no hint of welcome beyond the necessary courtesy of his station. Around him, murmurs passed between guests, polite enough to seem inconsequential, yet loaded with observation and hidden meaning. Each face you met seemed to ask silent questions. Are you of sufficient breeding? Can you navigate the invisible rules? Will you embarrass yourself and, by extension, those who have allowed you into this space? Every action became a small performance. Handing over your calling card required precision, a slip could mark you as inexperienced. Positioning yourself by the fireplace was a game of unspoken hierarchy, as where you stood, or who you stood beside, communicated alliances, wealth, and social skill. The very air seemed thick with expectation, the faint scent of perfume masking the faint, uneasy smell of anxious guests attempting to maintain composure. You could hear the faint clinking of teacups, the soft rustle of skirts, the murmured greetings that were at once polite and subtly combative. Conversations were not for comfort or amusement, they were complex codes of communication, where one misused word, one poorly timed glance, could unravel your carefully constructed social persona. You felt the weight of the gaze from every direction, the curious, the calculating, and the judgmental. Every detail of your presence was catalogued, your posture, your smile, your silence, even the way you breathed. And yet, beneath this oppressive attention, there was an almost invisible hum of anticipation. Guests had arrived to perform, yes, but also to connect, to assert themselves, and to find fleeting moments of genuine human interaction amidst the rigid protocols. You realized that surviving this evening would require more than decorum. It demanded a combination of acute observation, practiced poise, and the ability to hide discomfort behind a carefully maintained mask of ease. Each step forward, each subtle nod, each polite word exchanged was a miniature trial. Once you navigated the initial scrutiny of your entrance, you were ushered further into the drawing room, a space that seemed alive with its own unspoken rules. The furniture, arranged with precision, served not only as decoration but as markers of social territory. Chairs were positioned for strategic observation, sofas indicated alliances, and every corner offered the opportunity, or threat, of being noticed at the wrong moment. The conversations around you were not casual exchanges but intricate performances. Compliments were carefully layered with implication, laughter was measured to convey the right balance of amusement and refinement, and disagreements were softened into elegant debates where the real meanings hid beneath polite phrasing. A misplaced word could become a source of quiet scandal, while the perfect quip could elevate your standing. Every guest engaged in this subtle battle of wits, where reading the room, anticipating reactions, and modulating responses were crucial skills. You noticed Henrietta, the sharp-tongued hostess, gliding through the room with a fan in hand. Her compliments were barbed, her smile slightly too wide, her gaze calculating. She had mastered the art of polite cruelty, delivering remarks that seemed benign but carried a sting beneath their silk exterior. Observing her interactions was a lesson in survival. You had to match her grace, but never show eagerness or discomfort, never reveal the slightest sign that her words could wound. Meanwhile, the undercurrent of anxiety was palpable. Guests fidgeted with gloves, shifted their weight nervously, or excused themselves repeatedly to the garden or the cloakroom, trying to escape the invisible pressure that pressed on everyone in the room. The very act of listening was exhausting, as each conversation required careful interpretation. A compliment could conceal envy, a question might reveal judgment, and a pause could signal both hesitation and superiority. Food was brought around, but even this simple pleasure had become a test of endurance. You were expected to admire dishes that defied taste and logic, to nibble delicacies like pressed ox tongue or jellied calf's head with visible appreciation. Rejection, even subtle, could mark you as unrefined, careless, or lacking in social understanding. Eating became an act of performance, a silent communication of refinement and resilience. As the evening progressed, parlor games were announced. What seemed on the surface like light entertainment was, in reality, a subtle form of psychological warfare. Guests were drawn into competitions that revealed insecurities, social knowledge, and skill at improvisation. Every misstep, hesitation, or awkward gesture was observed and remembered, catalogued as part of the ongoing assessment of character and status. The piano recital that followed was another trial. A pianist with considerable passion, but minimal talent, performed a complex sonata with more enthusiasm than precision. Applause was obligatory, smiles were mandatory, and genuine appreciation was optional. You endured, pretending delight, all while noticing the guest's subtle shifts of approval or disapproval. Every incorrect note became an opportunity to observe reactions, every pause a chance to measure your own patience. Amidst this, fainting became an almost ritualistic occurrence. Guests swooned dramatically, either from the constriction of their clothing or from the social anxiety pressing down like an invisible hand. The fainting, both literal and theatrical, punctuated the evening with moments of chaos that required careful navigation. Attendees hurried to assist, whispered judgments passed, and the flow of conversation and observation resumed as if nothing had happened. The quadrille dance was announced, a compulsory ritual for anyone wishing to maintain social credibility. You were swept into a chaotic sequence of steps, twirls, and bows, alongside strangers whose hands were clammy, whose timing was erratic, and whose whispered corrections added to the tension. It was exhausting, confusing, and yet impossible to refuse. Participation was a demonstration of endurance, grace under pressure, and the willingness to conform to a rigid societal expectation. As the dance progressed, fatigue set in. Guests fumbled through steps, exchanged awkward glances, and attempted to hide frustration behind smiles. Yet, beneath the exhaustion, there was a sense of unity. All were performing, all were being watched, and all were complicit in this elaborate ballet of etiquette. This dance, chaotic as it was, symbolized the broader experience of Victorian social life, rigid, exhausting, and full of invisible tests, yet unavoidable for those seeking acceptance. Finally, the evening drew toward its conclusion, yet leaving proved nearly as complicated as arriving. Etiquette dictated that no one could depart while higher status guests were still present or arriving. The vestibule became a temporary holding area, filled with anxious whispers, rustling garments, and polite excuses. Guests lingered, trapped between the desire for freedom and the obligation to observe the rules, each moment a negotiation of patience and pride. Reflecting on the night, you realized the resilience required to endure these gatherings. The heavy fabrics, the constricting corsets, the careful parsing of conversation, and the exhausting dances all tested the body and mind. Yet beneath this formal exterior was a human desire for connection. Fleeting smiles, shared jokes, and moments of understanding reminded you that even in the strictest social codes, the longing for companionship and recognition persisted. The contrast between the stifling upstairs party and the lively, genuine celebrations downstairs among servants further underscored the performative nature of upper-class life. While the elite endured endless tests of etiquette and propriety, those below stairs found joy in music, freedom, and uninhibited camaraderie. This juxtaposition revealed the core of Victorian society. Appearances mattered above all, yet human nature always sought authentic connection, even in the most constrained circumstances. In the end, you departed, physically exhausted but mentally enlightened, having witnessed the intricate ballet of observation, endurance, and social strategy that defined a Victorian evening. It was a world of discomfort, absurdity, and strict hierarchy, but also one in which subtle humanity shone through, revealing the enduring hopes, anxieties, and resilience of those who navigated it.